This is the Cortez City Council work session / special meeting. Today's Tuesday, October 28th, 2025, and the time is 7 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order and start with A on our agenda, the draft Stormwater Master Plan presentation by Jones and DeMille Engineering. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. My name is Ty Copenhafer. I'm the Cortez office manager for Jones and DeMille Engineering. I'm also a water resources engineer. I grew up here, got to move back and work as an engineer here, and I love it. I have with me here today Ricky Anderson. I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm also a water resources engineer, work on a lot of projects in Colorado, but I live just over the border.
Great. I'm hoping not to take up too much of your time today, but I appreciate you guys having us and letting us present today. I have here, this is a GIS story map that we created. So you probably saw our Transportation Master Plan GIS story map. It had a lot of information. It was pretty dense. I tried to condense this GIS story map to really kind of the more important things, I guess, and not the boring engineering stuff, to make it easier to digest. Of course, we still have the boring engineering stuff in the full report, but hopefully this makes it a little more public-facing and easier to go through. Oh, boy. Okay, so in our scope for this project, a lot of what we did was based on your existing GIS information. So we pulled together all the stormwater infrastructure that you had listed to look at it and decide how does it line up against your current city code? How do we need to improve it? We evaluated your existing system using a hydraulic model and hydrologic modeling just to create a project list and help rank them, how you need to improve them to bring things up to current standard. The alternatives and projects that you'll see here, they're preliminary. We did enough engineering to get an idea of the cost, but they still need to be taken through to final design. Hopefully this project list helps you prioritize things and know how to move the stormwater infrastructure forward. So I'll pull up here. We have this map in our GIS story map. It shows you all of your existing city infrastructure as it sits right now. So you can see there's quite a few pipes, there's catch basins, there's culverts, there's quite a few things going on together. To analyze this system, we had to break everything into drainage basins. So this second map in the story map is our drainage basins. The big yellow circles are main outfalls. So when you look at this map, you'll see there's kind of two main drainages through the city. One drains more north to Hartman Draw, and the other one drains south to McElmo Canyon. Cortez is fairly fortunate that they were built on more of a hill compared to other communities. You don't lay right in the bottom of a river or anything. So most of your water drains to each side of the city, which is a huge benefit for stormwater infrastructure. I'll zoom in a little bit and you can start seeing we have your existing infrastructure laid out here with arrows showing connectivity. So a lot of things, they go into a catchment, they go into a pipe, and then they daylight out into a ditch. Sometimes they go through a culvert, sometimes they go back into a pipe. So this network helps you see how water flows through the city by each of these catch basins. And you can zoom in and see there's quite a few catchments throughout the city. But again, they drain to each side, so none of the catchments get very large. Once we identified all the deficiencies throughout the city, we went through and we put together projects. This is what the last map in the GIS story map is. So we looked at all the deficiencies and how to fix them and group them by area into different projects. So you can see here, I'll zoom in here, this is like Empire and North Dolores Road. We're only showing things that need to be improved on this map, not existing infrastructure. A lot of them that connected were easier to group. So I think this is just a really simple way to see what needs to be improved. Also, grouping the projects helped us put smaller projects together into a project that would be more palatable for a construction company to come in and do. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ricky.
So that gives you an idea of our scope, our analysis, how we step through that, and then the proposed projects.
Can you make sure to talk more into the mic? You're just a little wider. Thank you.
I'm also kind of tall. So on this page of the story map, we show the criteria we use to help prioritize projects. And you can see what we set those based on. It more or less became a matter of risk and what we're protecting or what would flood if the project wasn't implemented. And if you click on this table below, it'll take you to a PDF, and this lists all the projects. So kind of starting on the left and moving to the right, you'll notice on the left there is an identifier. And if you go back to that GIS story map with the projects, you'll be able to find those. And then it has information on the location, the type of drainage, which came into the level of service that we analyzed, which was the 10 or 100-year event. And then we included a description on what's wrong, why there's a project needed, and then on to talk more about what's included in the project, basically the infrastructure, a construction cost, and then other considerations when it moves to final design and construction. And so we took all those projects. You'll notice one thing in the GIS story map is there's those red dashed lines. Those actually circle projects that are in a similar area. So we did a few things. We grouped projects, and then those projects were assigned the priority that we talked about. And then as part of our scope, what we were asked to do is to take these projects and put them in a 10-year project list to help Cortez plan on how to implement those. And if you go to the master plan report, section 5.4, we've got those in a table. Casey, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I need the mouse or the computer, but I think the important thing to note here, or perhaps the worrying thing to note when we look at these numbers, is that for this to happen in 10 years, it would exceed the total budget for our street improvement fund in its entirety every year, and we'd still fall short. I haven't been here that long. It's my understanding that for quite a while the stormwater improvements have been lumped in with the street improvement fund, and not a whole lot has been done in the past 20 or 30 years. So I think the real discussion that the council needs to consider is that in order to pay for this work, this is just a project list. We can't possibly do this within our current budget unless we want no work on streets at all, and et cetera, et cetera. And the interesting thing that I find, and I think that's why it's been ignored, is that, the situation, we can't plan for these situations very well. It happens when the weather decides to do it, to drop all that water. I've been in a few of these pretty awesome and potentially damaging storms that we have here, where it drops a couple inches of water in 30 to 45 minutes, and you guys all know what that looks like in town, and things fill up pretty quickly. So it does bring up a discussion item which involves a stormwater utility, and further discussion on if that's to be considered, or and then if so, how to move forward with that in order to pay for the plan. Until we have a mechanism for paying for this plan, we can chip away at it. And I do want to thank Ian Robertson for doing a great job of chipping away at it in his capacity. He's kind of the strong silent type, but he's a pretty important team member, and he's been working on it, but we're just not going to see this in 10 years. And even with low figures on a stormwater utility, we're looking at a 40-year plan, or 60, depending on your math. So I guess with that, we can open it up to discussion and questions.
My initial question is, because is this all just improving existing infrastructure, not adding anything new? Or
Yeah,
I missed that part.
there is some new infrastructure. A lot of what we looked at, you had sufficient infrastructure to cover the main drainages. There was a couple areas where we had to add additional infrastructure to cover some of the water that we're seeing. So some of those. So this area, kind of in the center south of town, is one of those areas where there's some new drainage pipes coming in, things like that. Same with over by CarQuest. Nothing too extreme, I guess, and a lot of it's in the existing roadway.
And the more expensive ones also cross State Highway 160, and a lot of it is expanding the.
You talking to the mic? Sorry, Casey.
A lot of these projects are expanding also the width of the pipe that's there already.
You said that some of them cross the state highway. That brings up the possibility of funding help from CDOT and other programs. Do you have a list of programs and other things that can help us fund, particularly things that interact with like state highways or things like that?
We haven't started looking at outside funding yet.
Okay.
On your list of projects, is there any, what I'm trying to determine, is there any comparison with apples and oranges when it comes to the size of the conveyance systems that are in these projects? Are they like, are they all minor, or are they all major, or is that even looked at? Can you address that?
Gotcha. Yeah. So the difference between minor and major conveyance is if it's a FEMA flood zone. So FEMA flood zones have protection on them already. So a lot of the infrastructure through the city most of it's minor infrastructure as a lower design storm event. A lot of the ones like Hartman Canyon, there's some areas that go into, Carpenter nature area that are part of the city. Same with down on McElmo. But most of the city isn't impacted by those flood zones directly.
So as you were prioritizing the list, and that's great to see, wondering about some of the things that you looked at. Property, assuming the health and safety of people, what were some of those high-level criteria?
Yeah, let's pull that up. I'll jump back over. So we categorized things in 4 priorities. You can see that priority 1 was if there were residential commercial structures and 3 or more were flooded. And then priority 2 was less than 3. Priority 3, it was road flooding only, so no structure damage. And then priority 4 was a noted deficiency, but immediate action was not necessarily recommended based on the flood risk. And an example of that one would be if you had a culvert for a trail system, where that wouldn't necessarily impact structure or infrastructure like a road, as significant as a road.
I really appreciate the work that was put into this. I thought it was a great way that you broke it down and that you did your priorities of the projects and the monies in it, and then the future monies in these as far as how much we're going to be liable for if we postpone them for. So that's a great great way of looking at it. Thanks. I thought it was a great report.
Thank you.
I would just add in closing that Jones DeMille has been done on or before deadlines, and that's been pretty cool to see. So, congrats, guys.
Thank you.
Dennis, did you have a question? Okay. I guess we're going to continue this conversation then of potential fee, or what did you call it, for stormwater?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So there's certainly a couple paths forward. Jones DeMille is actually, they've got a process that they use that we've taken a look at, and so there's a couple models where there's a certain fee imposed, a stormwater utility imposed based on the amount of was it roof space or impervious area that owners have. So in that situation, imagine like a big box store would pay a higher utility fee than a homeowner because they've got a lot more drainage associated with that property. So I guess, yeah, there's do nothing, there's fund through, grants and those type of opportunities. There's establish a stormwater utility type scenario. And then if that's the path forward, which is certainly the most reliable option, then it would be how much, and is it scalable based on the drainage area for that property. And in the plan, they've suggested kind of a pretty brief outline for that. I forget the exact number, I think 3.2 or no, 7.2.
Yeah,
7.2 is where they talk about that funding through internal sources.
If we ended up doing like an urban renewal authority, would that, or is that used for, those funds would be used for something else? Okay.
So what are your what are your thoughts as far as further council in time investment and planning strategies in this? Like what's your initial ideas on how we move forward given this data that we?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, if we're still working on that. As Casey mentioned, we have a couple of different ways we can go about it. One of those we'd have to go to the voters for to perhaps start a stormwater utility. We're hopeful that we don't have to go that far, and there might be an intermediate solution to that we could start a lot quicker. But we are not prepared to come to council with what that should look like just yet. We still have to confer with the attorney and do some math on it to make sure it's going to do what we want it to do. So as Casey said, more to come, but this would be the initial step to make you aware of what the problem is.
So are we looking at maybe 4 months or before the next election or any?
I'm hoping it actually it could be as soon as the second meeting in November. I'm not promising that, but I'm hoping that we can get it in front of you this calendar year.
Thank you.
Well, I know, infrastructure has been one of our main priorities as a council for years, and just add this to the list of deferred maintenance. So it's definitely, we want to continue these conversations and see what we can do to kind of raise these funds and, address our infrastructure, especially like on a regular basis moving forward so that we're not here again in 20 years. So. Thank you guys for coming all this way to present to us. Great work. Love seeing stuff in GIS, so.
Great, thank you, yeah. And if there's any further questions, feel free to pass them on to Casey. You're happy to help how we can. Thank you.
One thing I will say, what's really cool is you guys took local pictures. We get a lot of presenters that take pictures of Loveland and Boulder. I know where every one of those pictures were taken. I can see it, so thanks.
All right, we'll move on our agenda to B, which is council general discussion. Any topic council would like to bring up? All right, seeing none,